Morning guys, I'm the Tech Prepper. So this episode is kind of special for me. We just crossed our 200 subscriber mark. I think last night we were at 203, so I want to thank everybody for joining the channel. So we're going to be doing a giveaway. I'll talk about the details of the giveaway if you can hang in till the end of this recording. But what we're going to do today is an after action report for Field Day 2020. It was my first field day. I am a technician class licensee holder, so I'm limited in what I can do, but I had a lot of fun. And I'm gonna have to read quite a bit of notes, mostly because there was a lot that I want to share with you guys about what happened to me in my experience on Field Day 2020. So we're gonna start with my missions or my goals for Field Day 2020. So the first one was I wanted to operate as a 1B station in a remote location, whereby I basically packed out everything I needed on my person, and then I wanted to do a non-trivial hike on foot. So it wasn't much, but it was 2.5 miles one way in the Arizona summer, so it felt quite a bit longer. My second goal was to operate on 10 meters digital on FT8, and more than anything, I would say even more than playing radio, I really wanted to test my loadout. We live in an area where we have lots of ongoing wildfires, and I wanted to see how quickly I can actually pack up my gear, and my comms equipment is one of those pieces of kit that I wanted to time on its own to get out here. And then I had it in my head that I was going to be able to make at least contacts in 20 states via QRP, and I'll tell you right now that did not happen. It doesn't happen when I'm at home using the same equipment, so I don't know why I thought being out in the field it would be any different. In terms of planning, those of you who have stuck with the channel know that I've done 3 planning exercises in dry runs. The first was the tarp shelter in the backyard. I'll link to that video below, and that was just to see if I could actually deploy a shelter system. The second dry run I did before Field Day 2020 was taking that system and mostly the meal preps that I had out to the location I wanted to hike out to. And I did that in the Jeep with my wife just to get a sense for the location and setting up the equipment for the first time in the field. The third dry run I did, I think it was either last weekend or weekend before last, and that was a hike with about half of my gear. Alright, so outside of those 3 dry runs, I did do quite a bit of planning. This was in advance. So I did create a checklist, and it's double-sided, and it has basically everything I wanted in my kit. And this was extremely valuable for me. In fact, I did not include everything that I had on this list, and that was to my detriment, and I'll talk about that in a bit. The night before, I decided to read up on the ARRL Field Day Rules and Regulations. I think it was like a 7-page document. I did print it out with me just in case I had to refer to the rules out in the field. And then I also printed out a copy of the section designators. And in general, they map pretty well to the state abbreviations, but this was handy. And again, I wanted to have as much available to me in hard copies instead of digital, just in case the batteries ran out. Oh, and then the other thing I did do the night before was double check that my equipment was working, so I tried out JTX, and I realized that there was a feature that I did not know about, and I think it was under advanced settings. There is an option for special operations, and Field Day is included there, and it will allow you to enter in the type of station you are and your section designator, and it'll include that in the messages that go out for Field Day. So that was kind of cool. I did not know about that feature. I'm sure everybody else who's a more seasoned ham knew that that was a capability built in. So the day of, I started at 1500 UTC, and what I wanted to do, in fact, I saw Jason's video, uh, KM for ACK's kind of mission video, and he talked about timing this loadout. So I did the same thing, and I actually filmed it. And I was surprised that with my checklist, it took me 1 hour and 1 minute and change to do my loadout. And I ran into a couple of issues. The first issue I ran into was that when I went to go pack my yaesu 818ND, the LCD screen was on, not backlit, and the characters were basically distorted and garbled. And I had no idea what happened when I was charging that unit the night before. So if anybody knows what that means on the 817 or 818ND, I would appreciate it. I couldn't find anything really online. And during the loadout, I actually had to take out my multi-tool, remove the battery compartment, disconnect the battery, and then everything seemed to be fine. So I wasn't sure exactly what state my radio was in, whether it had overheated in the garage. So that was about 5 or 6 minutes that I had not anticipated. And then since my equipment that I use, my HF station is my primary station at home, I had to take down everything. So it wasn't all exactly in one neat spot. The other interesting issue that I ran into was I decided at the last minute to switch packs. And this is something I would never do in the wild. I had ordered the 511 Rush 12-hour bag. I've been using the 24-hour version now for about 3.5 years, and the 72-hour version, the bigger one, for about 6 months now. And since the 12-hour version was quite a bit bigger than my Haley Strategic flat pack, I thought there would be no problem. Well, when I went time to pack, I actually didn't know what the best packing arrangement was, and I spent a lot of time relocating things, so I will never do that again. In fact, when I had finished the hike and packed up all my gear, I had a pretty good idea of how to pack everything again. So I think in general I probably could have cut down my packing time in half. The last issue I had was with my filming gear. So I was filming, as I do, with my iPhone 8, and I was filming in 4K. I just started doing that as of the last episode. And I ate through 30 gigs of storage and completely filled up my phone. Not only that, the phone also went through about half its battery life, and I was planning on filming for this episode and sharing that video. So long story short, I had to delete Filmic Pro, and I had to delete all the data I filmed during my packing session. So that was a big lesson learned for me, was to be sensitive to how much storage I have on my phone before I start filming. And then also a better mechanism to make sure that I don't go through most battery right before I leave. Fortunately for me, what did save me was that I have a second phone. It's my old iPhone 6 that I use to control the camera. And I had to use that as my backup for very limited filming, so I do have some lower res video and quite a few pictures that at least I was able to salvage as we go through this video. Oh, some loadout items were interesting. So I have a couple of different buckets. One bucket were items that I left behind, and I just couldn't fit them in the pack very well. I brought more water than I had anticipated in my dry runs, and I kind of ran out of room. So I ditched the charging cradle and the DC charging system for my yaesu FT60R, my handy talkie. And then on my checklist is actually kind of funny. I always carry the 10 essentials when I go backpacking, and while I have it on the list, I decided to ditch my gloves, which was a major problem for me. There were some items that I packed that I did not use, and it was mostly related to my meal system. So I have my fuel canister, my stove, my nesting cup, some instant coffee, and a free rice meal. When I was doing all of my dry runs, I was doing them at 5:30 in the morning and returning home by no later than 9:30. Since field day did not start till UTC 1800, which was 11 a.m. local time for me, it was way too hot. So I did not have my normal coffee, I did not make a hot breakfast, so that was gear that obviously I could have ditched. And I don't know if I mentioned it, my plan for operating was to do just 8 hours end to end. I did not plan on doing a full 24 hours. So anyway, so I ended up leaving around 16:30 UTC, which was 9:30 a.m. Local time for me. And at that time, it was already 93 degrees Fahrenheit. And the plan was to trek out 2.6 miles into the Tonto National Forest. So I arrived about an hour and 10 minutes later at about 17:40 UTC. And the very first thing I did was set up my tarp shelter. And since I had trained with that 3 times before, it went up immediately, no issues. The only issue was I found a rock to stake in the tent stakes, and the heat on the rock was burning my hand, and that's why I really should have brought my gloves that I typically have with me. Immediately after that, I went ahead and set up my ATOS 25, and this was the first time that I had used the custom bag for my antenna that a neighbor had made for me. I'll put a link to that video below. And that packed out perfectly. The ground stake that I carried with me with the PVC pipe custom build, that worked pretty well. Again, the major problem was just the heat from the rock, because I really did have to drive the stake down to get that down. And it was so hot that I ended up not quite seating the PVC pipe for the stand correctly, and it was kind of like at an angle, so you'll see in the video that the antenna kind of goes off at a pretty noticeable angle. But everything worked fine. Once I had the tarp shelter set up, the antenna set up, I went ahead and deployed my REI FlexLight chair and the trichology table. So no real issues there. The only issue I did notice, actually, let's take a step back. As I had the chair and the table set up, I did use the NanoVNA for the first time in the field, and it was wonderful for tuning the antenna. So I was planning earlier in my planning sessions to take my rig expert, so I was really happy that the NanoVNA actually did work out really nicely and did not have any issues while I was using it. The chair was interesting. When I go into the Tonto National Forest and I'm in a pretty remote location, I carry a full-sized pistol outside the waistband, and the way that chair is structured, my pistol was just digging into my side the entire time. So I think I'm going to probably have a different system next time I go, maybe take my smaller CCW, so it's not digging into my side. Let's talk about radio and station setup. So it was really easy to set up. So I had my yaesu 818ND with the Signal Link modem, and then my iPad mini, and then all the cables, and a small 4.5 amp hour yaesu battery. So setup was really quick. No real issues there. What I did like and didn't think would work all that well was I had configured my Raspberry Pi to have a second USB Wi-Fi dongle that was in a mode called Host AP mode, and I was able to pair my iPad mini and connect to that local Wi-Fi and then VNC in, so that all worked beautifully. The only issue I had with the iPad was related to the virtual keyboard. I think I would absolutely go down the route of getting a Bluetooth mechanical keyboard with me. I don't need a mouse. Using the pointer and my finger worked perfectly, but there were times where I had to actually enter in some information, and using the virtual keyboard was not ideal. So let's see here. So after I got everything all set up, I put the software WS-JTX into monitoring mode, and the bands were open like I've never seen them before. There was so much traffic, and it was at that point I realized that given that I run QRP, I was not going to be probably terribly successful because I thought my signal would be stomped on. And that turned out to be the case. So I was really thrilled to see that much activity. I had been waiting for months for 10 meters to open up, and I had a lot of success in weeks prior to field day getting on the air. But yeah, I had never seen activity like that before, so it was really cool as a newcomer to see all that activity. So at that point, I decided to find an open spot on the band, relatively open spot, and just start transmitting my CQ. And at that point, I decided to have a cold beer. I brought my Yeti and a non-alcoholic beer, and had some lunch. I did have a companion with me who was a non-ham, and his mother was actually kind enough to make us some individually wrapped sandwiches in quarters. And they were fantastic. That's going to be my go-to now on all these trips. So big thanks to Kirsten and David for preparing those sandwiches. And then we also had some frozen watermelon and cucumber, which in the Arizona heat was absolutely fantastic. So lunch was a big success. So while we were doing all that, we were transmitting for about an hour, and so I was at about a 50% duty cycle. Since FT8 is 15 seconds transmitting, 15 seconds listening. And I didn't make any contacts whatsoever. So I decided after lunch then to go ahead and just start chasing CQs. I tried quite a bit, and after about 30 minutes, I was only able to make one contact in the Phoenix area. So I'll get the mileage wrong, but I think it was about 60 miles point to point. So that was my first and last contact. So if you guys want more ham radio goodness, I don't have any more. Like I said, I would consider this field op to be a success because I get roughly the same type of performance with that equipment here. So my one big takeaway from that is I am absolutely going to get my general. I've been studying for a couple months now, and I'm ready to pass it. And my gift to myself is going to be a Yaesu FT891. So I'll have quite a bit more power, and I'll probably look into other antenna options as well. So yeah, I think it's time for me to upgrade my HF equipment based on that experience. So since we had such little experience or luck or success with contacts, there was a small hill a couple hundred feet above us where I'd gone to before, and there were some petroglyphs. So we checked out the petroglyphs and actually took a nice shot of the camp, so you can actually see really how remote to location we were and what our setup looked like. So it was very minimalist field day setup for us, but we had a lot of fun. Yeah, so I would say at about 2045 UTC, the temperature had reached about 96 degrees and was starting to climb. Inside of that tarp shelter that I have shown a couple times in my videos, it was a full 10 degrees cooler, and we were in full shade. So I would say more than anything else, that shelter system proved its weight in gold. It was the first time I used it at that time of day, and I will not go into the Tonto National Forest without my tarp shelter and my trekking pole system, because that will absolutely save your life. So if nothing else, this entire field day experience vetted my ability to survive out in the desert with that system. All right, so we left kind of early. We started to pack up around, I think it was 2100 UTC. It only took 25 minutes to pack up the whole site now that I kind of knew where everything was. So I was expecting that my initial packing would take about the same time. So that's my goal. 25 minutes moving forward is going to be the new standard that I want to be able to load out my HF gear if needed. And then we arrived back at the house at about 3:30 p.m. Local time. So we weren't in the field more than about 7 hours end to end, but we had a lot of fun for my first field day. So guys, that's kind of it for kind of my experience for Field Day 2020. Let's talk about the 200 subscriber giveaway. So I have two items. One is the High Speed Gear International, or HSGI TACO. This is the Double Decker. It has a pistol magazine pouch and a rifle pouch on the back. This works really nicely with the 5.56, 223 magazines. And then I have a complete sealed in-box NanoVNA for the ham radio guys. So rules are going to be very simple. In this video, in the comments below, put in hashtag 200. That's hashtag 200. And I'm going to use that to filter the comments out. and I'm gonna make sure I dedupe them, so only one comment please. And if you can, let me know if you want the mag pouch or the NanoVNA. And then I would really appreciate it if you would just take it one step further and just let me know one thing you like about the channel or this video, or one thing you'd like to see improved, whether it's new content or things you'd like me to change. So that's it, guys. I'm going to leave this the contest open for 7 days, so Tuesday of next week, which I believe is July 7th. I will have another video. We will select a winner, and then I'll put rules on, or some notes on how to, so we can contact and exchange mailing information, and I'll get the package shipped out. All right, guys. Well, be strong, be safe, and be prepared.